Science at the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown, and served as a public policy scholar at the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars. He's also taught at Harvard, Notre Dame, George Washington, and Boston universities as a guest lecturer. He was editor-in-chief of the Oxford Encyclopedia of Islam and Politics, quite a tome. Thank you so much for your service there. Your PhD is from Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, and today, professor, scholar, and author Dr. Shahin addresses the war on Gaza, regional impact and future implications. A few minutes at the end.
Sure. Okay, sure. Good morning. I'm delighted to be here, and thank you so much for the introduction. I also wish to express my thanks to the CSID for extending this invitation to me. I have been, of course, associated with the CSID for a long time, and I appreciate, of course, the work that they have been doing. Let me start with a quick story. For over a decade or more, I have been teaching a course entitled the Dynamics of Transformation in the Middle East. The main objective of this course is to identify the factor that has the most profound impact on moving things in the Middle East. A factor that really has, or a dynamic that has a transformative impact in the region. So we examine religion, we examine ideologies, ideas, we examine economies, we examine elites and structures, institutions, states, and so on. And students, of course, conduct their research trying to find an answer to that question. And in the end, actually, we found out that the factor that has, or the dynamic that has the most profound impact on changing things in the Middle East is wars. Wars transform actors, they change structures, they create classes, and also change regimes. So what I would like to argue here during my allocated time is that, and this is of course a debatable conclusion, is that no matter how the Gaza war will end, a new narrative will emerge that will carry with it a strong drive for transformation. This is no-brainer, of course. I mean, this is not counterintuitive. This is very intuitive. So during my time, I will focus on three main themes. One is the impact, the regional impact of this war, and then what the war has revealed so far, and the future implications of the Gaza war. Now, with regard to the regional impact, of course, the Gaza war has upset, or at least delayed, the plans that were underway to establish a new order in the region. Before October 7th, the Palestinian issue was almost marginalized or even being liquidated. This is how the issue or the conflict is being perceived from the region itself, that the Palestinian issue has been sidelined, and actually a new regional order is being created with a different structure and even allocation of roles of players in that order. Israel was being integrated into the region through the Abraham Accords, and normalization of relations between Israel and some Arab countries, of course, was underway. A regional reconfiguration has been already taking place, packed under different names. The deal of the century, or regional economic integration, in which Israel, of course, was included as a key player in that regional order. Divisions among the Palestinians were intensifying, creating two models. And this is very important because this will relate to the future in terms of the new narrative. Creating two models, one is the Gaza model or the Hamas model, besieged for about over 14 or 15 years, impoverished, and also being looked at as a kind of a anomaly or an abnormal model within the new arrangement for the region. So this is one, the Gaza model on one side, and the other model, of course, is the Ramallah or the West Bank or the Palestinian Authority model, which some people called the Ramallah Cafe model. This is the new liberal, the prosperous. If you play along well, you will prosper, you will live in peace, and you can have, or you can compare the two models, this one that's impoverished, the resistance model, and the Gaza model, and the Ramallah model on the other hand. Also, the big prize was the possible normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia. This was, of course, and still is being, of course, aired as a possible outcome of the Gaza war in order actually to set the stage for a new process for resolving the conflict that we'll speak about, I'll speak about soon. Meantime, Israel, of course, was exercising full hegemony over the territories under its control, even including the West Bank itself, continued settlements, incessant attacks by settlers, thousands of forgotten Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails, languishing in Israeli jails, attacks on Al-Aqsa Mosque, and so on and so forth. So this was the context in which this war was taking place, or against which this war was taking place. Now, the second question I would like to address is how this war is, or this conflict is different from the previous one, and why this is very important to address in order to understand how the future, of course, or the future trajectory of that war, how it's going to materialize. Now, it's as my former speakers, or the speakers before me addressed many of these issues in terms of the aspects of this war. But there are, of course, salient differences between this war and the previous one. One, of course, is the maybe for the second time, but in a long time, Israel lost initiative in terms of taking action and taking the initiative, of course, for attacks and so on. It was taken by surprise and actually humiliated by well-orchestrated attacks inside its strongholds. Hamas was able to inflict tangible military damage inside Israel territories. And that, of course, was a big change or difference in terms of this war and the previous one. Also, this conflict has shaken the foundational ideals on which Israel stands. One, that Israel is a safe place for Jews, incoming Jews from outside. And second, of course, that the settlement project is a positive, prosperous project and a safe project for the incoming Jews. This is also the longest war that has taken place after Lebanon, 1982, and also after the 1973 war, and the most, of course, intense in terms of the level of atrocities and the level of destruction, as has been alluded to. Another difference, of course, is the position or the stand of Arab regimes in this war, and the public support that they have taken for maybe the first time publicly in support of Israel, not only by many condemned Hamas, of course, for what has taken place, and also, for example, participating in the defending or demonizing Hamas in the siege against Gaza, starving the population in Gaza, and in defending Israel practically in terms of, most recently in intercepting the Iranian missiles and so on. And of course, the last one, in terms of the impact or the difference in that conflict, of course, is the world or the global public opinion that started to shift. Started, of course, initially in support and addressed or endorsed the Israeli narrative, and then started to shift against Israel gradually over time. Now, two other points. What did this war reveal? And then we'll conclude with the future scenarios. The war revealed actually numerous facts. Some of them are arguable, of course, and debatable, but one of them is the erosion of Israel's deterrence. The ability of Israel also to deter and take preemptive actions, and without some kind of accountability. This idea of the free hand in the region, that Israel can strike anywhere and so on, I think it will be thought of. It will not end, but at least it has been weakened, as we have seen, of course, with the retaliation that has taken place, and also the shift in the military balance between the actors, the regional actors, and also and Israel on the other hand, in terms of their ability now to launch retaliation against Israel and Israel proper itself. The second one, of course, is the clear vulnerability of Israel. I'm of the generation, of course, that was raised in the 60s and 70s on the assumption that every time we'll go to war with Israel, we will be defeated as Arabs and so on. That Israel was invincible and Israel cannot be defeated because the whole military strategy of Israel is its ability to defeat the Arab militaries combined. And that was one of the military strategies that even the United States adopted and provided for Israel itself. I think this has been shattered in 1973 and also in the Gaza war. The war has dragged on for 6 months without Israel being decisively able to dismantle or destroy Hamas as one of its main objectives, and actually it's running out of targets to destroy. The other thing, of course, the weakness, the war revealed the weakness of the regimes in the region to defend themselves, to contain any kind of conflicts, or to inability to resolve conflicts, standing conflicts in the region, and their need for the United States to help them, assist them, and even defend them. Now, this is very important because it will have ramifications in the future, because by dragging the United States, or by the United States willingly and directly engaging in the war, in terms of managing this war, providing the armaments and so on, and taking that kind of, really kind of very disappointing stand with regard to how the war evolved and the continuation of the atrocities and so on, the United States is being perceived now as a belligerent actor. Sure. Oh, time up. Okay. Belligerent actor and an enemy combatant to the peoples in the region. This is very important because that will increase the instability in the region, no matter how the war will end in the future. Let me just jump. I will just... the future implications, of course, everybody talks about the day after. No one has a clear idea about how the day after will look like, or this day after will look like, or how Gaza will be governed after the war ends. Israel wants to destroy Hamas and maintain permanent security control. However, destroying Hamas is difficult because Hamas is a popular movement. Hamas represents an idea that's larger than Hamas itself. And also, the complete destruction of Hamas will require the renewed occupation of Gaza by Israel, which will put Israel into a direct confrontation with the population in the forms of resistance and military attacks. So one possibility, and I will conclude with this, is the war will phase out. It will fade away. And this is exactly what Israel has declared or adopted as a strategy. Now we are in the third phase, and the third phase will mean withdrawals, gradual withdrawals, and also it will mean some kind of targeted assassination or continuing siege over Gaza and so on. So it will fade away without any party, any side achieving its objective. Now, considering the extent of the destruction that has taken place, I think Hamas will have to start considering adopting a conciliatory position in order to allow for the reconstruction, for the return of the displaced, and also for lifting the siege. Looking at the larger picture, and this is, I think, the more important issue. I wish, like Professor Aikul's hope or expectation will hold true, because I believe the two-state solution is not feasible. There isn't much territory to build a Palestinian state on. Also, for 70 years, the international community, they tried willingly or not willingly, or full-heartedly or not, to come up with this or to implement this two-state solution without any success. Finally, many red lines and atrocities have been crossed and committed, and I think that will not for a long time allow for two states to exist side by side. Now, that takes us to the essence of the conflict. The essence of the conflict, or the basis of this conflict, is occupation and self-determination. It's a fight for independence. And in these situations, resisting occupation has always been, historically, the only viable option, and the occupied wins in the end. Another round, in my view, I might be wrong, another round will begin in a few years with a qualitative change in the balance of power between the resistance and Israel. This will come with an even larger cost than the one we are currently witnessing. Thank you, and sorry just to exceed my time.